Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, good morning to a few of you. Welcome back to another live training here at WPStudio. My name is Benjamin. I am the chief code breaker here at WPStudio. And this is a very special webinar because we are going to be talking about clients and why clients leave. So we're going to be spending a little bit of time talking about our businesses and even values that we put into our business. So before we get started, just as a reminder, this will be recorded and available for replay, both for members of WPStudio in the training library. And if you are not a member yet, I'd encourage you to take a look at that, but I will be posting this in the YouTube channel. We will also have a chat room at WPStudio.com/chat. So jump on over there because I will be following along in that chat room. So if you have any questions, you want to participate, enter the discussion, it'll all happen over there. So the goal for today is we're going to look at why clients leave and how to prevent them from leaving. And then I'm also going to talk about situations where how to prevent yourself from preventing the clients from leaving. Because sometimes it is a good situation to just let a client go. So we're going to go through the 10 major reasons why clients leave, and then I've got a few other things to talk about with you. So let's dive in right away. So the number one thing that causes a client to leave, I see, is a budget. The idea that sometimes a business simply runs out of money. Sometimes the money is being redirected for a different project. Now, as we go through these different things that cause a client to leave, I do want to point out that we're not talking about clients that are not, or potential clients. We're talking about people who you've had a business relationship with. Maybe you have already done a project for them. You've already sold the client. They've been with you. And then all of a sudden you find out the client is just saying, listen, we're going to have to sever the ties because, sometimes, a client literally is going to run out of money. Maybe they had a set budget that they were going to launch their company with. And sure, at that point, they had money to hire you to build them a website, to handle social media, to do some of their advertisements or their marketing. Well, it's also possible that the business did not make the money they were looking for, so they're going to come to you and say, listen, we've got some budgetary issues, and so we're going to have to cut back, and that means either letting you go or canceling our contract with you or whatever's going on here. So sometimes the money is also redirected to new projects, and so this leaves us with what I call the opportunity. The what can you do to prevent a client from leaving at this stage? So the opportunity is, there's several different things. One of them is to look at rolling the client into what I'm calling a lesser range. This would be where they would pay less for a smaller range of services. So in this time when a client comes to you and says, our budget is not going to be able to keep up with this, we love what you've done with us over the past year or something. And at this point, you can present ideas not to lower your prices, but to bring the client into a lesser range. So maybe you had them on a maintenance plan that also did daily backups. It also did security. It also did, following on the social media and what needs to happen. Maybe you've got a smaller plan that you can roll out. Maybe it's not something that you advertise, but maybe you have one that simply will deal with the hosting and the updates. So this is an opportunity for you, if you want to keep the client, to offer a smaller package. There are some people who have ongoing fees that they need the client to pay, and sometimes that would be an upfront cost for all the plugins that they need to have. Maybe it's the upcoming cost of they're getting a benefit of paying the year-long hosting, all these type of things. Well, you might consider extending the payments over a larger period of time. So let's say it comes up for renewal time and the client needs to pay you $800, come January. Well, you might look at saying, all right, what we can do is, how about we split it into 3 payments of, or 4 payments of 3 payments of $300, so that it won't be such an impact to their business. Because remember, they still have to make that decision on what their business can budgetarily handle. So the idea of, if they can't handle a large upfront, maybe you can spread it out over multiple months, and then you're charging just a little bit extra. So over the course of those 3 or 4 payments, instead of paying the upfront $800, they're actually paying $900. But because you're carrying them over those months, it's something to consider. But again, you have to evaluate the importance of keeping that client, because in all of these stages, if you are, whether it is this, the budgetary issue, when you've got to evaluate the costs, the benefits, the downside of keeping a client. So when you consider, all right, I do want to keep this client, I feel I can still provide value at an appropriate price for this client, so you can go out of your way to try different things that will possibly allow it to fit better in their budget. But we will enter those times where you just got to let them go. This is going to be a recurring issue here. Do you already have an exit plan and process? We're going to come back to that. So dropping your price too far without evaluating the worth of the client is devaluing yourself and your business. Let me say that again. Dropping your price too far just to fit within your client's budget is going to devalue yourself. Just because the client only has the budget for $50 for an annual hosting thing does not mean that you should offer that. Because at any point, if they are truly trying to run their business, they will have to see, okay, I cannot stay in business if all I have is $50. And if that's what they need to understand, you need to understand that as well for your business. You cannot stay in business if you are only charging $50. So why should you expect yourself to stay in business if you can't expect, if the client doesn't expect to stay in business? So I'm putting that out there, that if you've evaluated that the client is now, the value is too low, the price is too low for you to stay in business, you've got to let them go. It is not your responsibility to keep your client's businesses afloat. Sometimes that's hard to do, but at the end of the day, you've got to make that clear. So the number 2 reason clients leave is value. You will have clients that do not see an objective value or return on investment that you provide. But here's another hard truth in this. If a client doesn't see your value that you bring, not only will they not stick around, but I say it's actually your fault that they don't know the value. Because in the basic concept of business, value equals your quality plus the service that you bring divided by the cost. That we can actually quantify and break this down, but how do we get that across to the client so that they don't leave? One of the things is educating the client. It is all on your shoulders, because I want you to see this, and I just want you to read this line right here that I'm highlighting that's on your screen. And it's hard to come to this grasp, but every business owner needs to do this. It is not the role of your client to calculate your worth to them. It is your responsibility to make that clear to your client. So when we are doing this, we need to be providing a consistent communication with metrics, facts, things that they are relatable to. The idea that you need to be telling the client what you are bringing to the table. And if you are on this ongoing maintenance plan where you're providing security updates, these are opportunities where you can insert into the notifications, the monthly emails or the letters that you are sending out, that we've been able to patch WordPress for 6 different security issues, that we've not only protected your site, but we've made sure there's quality backups, so at any time we can always restore your whatever you want to set up. You need to be able to educate that client as to the value you bring, because at the end of the day, if the clients don't see your value, they're going to leave. But this is also at the point, if you've done this education, you do communicate your value, you will still have clients who don't see your value. Well, guess what? If they don't see your value, they will always be a hassle. And again, do you already have an exit plan process? That's always an important thing when you are letting a client go. But an example here is, and this is a quote, that once you hear a client say this, you know you have a value proposition issue. If your client says, well, my 12-year-old nephew does what you do, yeah, at that point, you know that that client does not value you or does not know the value you bring. And if they're stuck in this stage, you just need to let them go. I just want to give you an example that's outside of the tech field, because let them go if they don't see your value is true in any type of business that you do. My wife has a student who has had payment problems in the past on their bills, and it just came to light recently why this is true. Because she found out that this young student, we're talking young teen, has just revealed that they are going to start teaching, music lessons to others. And the parents are so proud of this person who has no rational basis from which they can teach from. But that reveals those parents' understanding or how they value the work of a professional teacher. Because if they think, well, anybody can do it, we're just going to let our 14-year-old start teaching. It's just, at the moment they say, well, my grandson does what you do, and he only charges $50 and a trip to Baskin Robbins for ice cream. That's a dead giveaway that you gotta let them go. They don't see your value. So the third reason clients leave, is trust. If a client feels that you are not being honest or straightforward, they will begin questioning your value and they leave. One of the ways that you can kind of prevent this or deal with this trust issue is be the same business person at the beginning, middle, and end of the relationship. So what happens when there is this trust issue? What could you do? Be honest and direct, even when the truth is hard to express. When we're talking about businesses, especially web development, technical things, sometimes it's hard to tell the client, listen, keep your hands off this part of the code. I have had to fix your stuff way too many times. Don't touch it if you don't know what you're doing. But at the same time, don't oversell an idea. Don't sell a client on something that they may not need. Because you know what's going to happen? If you sell a client saying, all right, grandma wants to sell her donuts on a weekly basis where people can order the donuts, she'll home cook the donuts and then deliver them on Saturday mornings. Don't oversell the idea that they need a whole inventory tracking system in their e-commerce store where they need to be able to do ordering and invoicing and billing on advanced things, because you know what's going to happen? Grandma's going to be so excited to show and get people using her new system you built for them that somebody is going to come up to her that she trusts, that she may know for many years, and is going to say, why do you need all this stuff? I think this is way more than what you need, and you're not taking advantage of all these other things that your site offers. Did your developer say you would need this? And that little seed is going to put that distrust in you. So the opportunity there is to be what I would call a solutions person, not an answer person. There are too many web developers out there who a client will say, I want to do this, can I do this, can I do this? And the answers are simply, yes, 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 we can do it, yes, 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 yes. Why not be the solution person that gets all those questions from the client so that then you can provide, here is the solution for all of your questions, where I don't think you need to go here yet. We need to do this first, and then we can look at this based on how things are going. So again, if you approach things as I'm going to work on providing a solution, not just the answers, that can help prevent you from overselling an idea. That can help you be honest about, I don't think you need this here yet, and here's why. So why don't we actually build up some sales before we, hire a specialty marketing service? Because if you don't have any sales coming in, why are you trying to promote something until you've actually worked out all the kinks of the whole sales process? So at this point, when should you let those type of people go? If trust has been broken, there isn't much you can do to restore that. It's time to be honest about the situation and let them move on. So if you've oversold something, or you've told the client, hey, you need to go this direction, and then they want to do something else. Also, if the client has lied to you and broken your trust, this is where being honest and saying it's time to part ways, it's time for me to let you go, that if you have broken my trust once, you may do it again, and so for the sake of my business, I need to let my client go. So that's the third way, is this trust issue is why clients leave. Politics. Now, I'm not talking about governmental issues. This is a really hard thing that for most freelancers and small business owners, there's nothing you can do to prevent this one. What I'm talking about is your client inside their own company, they get political disagreements of, somebody's playing office politics, somebody's trying to one-up thing, and you have your connection with the person, maybe the marketing department, maybe whoever it is who's hiring you to build the website and is your contact point. Well, what happens when that person, that contact point in that company, has a falling out with the vice president? And then now that vice president is going to stand in opposition to every single thing that person does. Has anybody ever had that happen? You were simply dragged into another corporation's squabbles simply because your only relationship was with one of the people. Marianne. No, I haven't been bugging your office yet. But again, every single time of these client exits, there is opportunity. And I know I've said this for many years. I know Nathan Ingram has said this for many years. Are you actually doing business with the decision makers at the company? Or did all you get was your contact point is the secretary? It happens. Sometimes the decision makers don't want to ever deal with you. They put somebody else in charge of you. But that's where we must say, okay, if somebody else is in charge of me, I need to be proactive, or at least I need to put in my client information that this is, let's call it a multi-tiered type company. And so I need to make sure that I at least have interactions with other people at that company. That could be with billing. The idea when you send your invoice, have just a personal little note. Hey, thanks so much. Here's the invoice. And can you put me in touch with whoever is doing the payments so I can, pass information on. The idea with do you have contact with the marketing department? So you've made sure you have gotten directly from somebody else in the company their marketing materials. Have you had interaction? Maybe it's at your initial sales point with the upper tier management. Do they know who you are? Are you sending thank you for your business type of information to different people in the company? And yes, Paul, that would be if your contact person is busted for embezzlement, everyone they dealt with is a no-no. But this is the only, and again, sometimes it's going to be so disastrous, there's nothing you can do. You just have to let the client go. But I would say is if you have consistent and recorded communication, this would be something, maybe you have a ticket system. Maybe you have, a client portal where any type of communication, any type of back and forth is recorded so that if your one person at that company is now on the outs with the company, you can move forward, contact somebody else in the company and say, listen, I know we've had great relationships in the past. I would like to add you as a secondary access so you can actually see the communications that have gone through. I'd love to keep you as a client, but I understand there are other issues going on. But I want to be upfront and say, here is the history of my company's interaction with your company. So sometimes that can be the opportunity to keep the client. But as we say, sometimes when the infighting has begun, then guess what? You become the least of their concerns, both the company and your client, and then your contact point, which means payments, interactions, and more will just fall to the wayside and not be a priority. So at that point, again, you may need to evaluate that client. How worth it is it for me to fight for this business relationship when I know that it's going to be a time suck for me to simply, ride the waves where I may not get paid on time. I may not get a response from somebody. Is it time to let them go? So in the infighting, that's one thing. But clients also leave because of apathy. There's no emotion. There's no reaction from that client when your name or your business is brought up. It is proven in business that emotional responses help keep people loyal. And a lack of emotion causes questions to raise about the value being brought to the table. So it's very possible many people run their business and say, as we go evaluate the costs that are going out the door every quarter or every year or semi-annually, however they do it, when they come to your expenses that they are paying, if there's no emotional investment, there's an apathy. And so then I'm like, well, maybe I don't need to pay this person anymore because I'm not invested in this person. So what are some opportunities? These offer small little surprises, personal touches to the process, where if you know a client absolutely loves a certain color, Let's just say you've got a client who's a florist who, most florist websites might have a lot more of the green, red, great colors. But let's say the client absolutely adores pink, and you've seen it because their office is all pink. They've got pink everywhere. They got a pink cell phone cover. They've got pink, pink, pink. Well, if you put maybe like a border that is pink around some of the images, or you're doing a pink shadow on something, or there's a certain thing, and you point it out to them specifically and say, this was my little personal touch for you because I know you love pink, and so we've incorporated it into the design. You know what you've just done? You've created an emotional response for the website that you built for that client, that when they see the site, there is going to be that emotional, it's no longer apathy. They feel like, hey, they are right there. That's because of me. My developer created that because they recognized I love this color. Include more positive interactions with your client exchanges. Literally being more positive about something. That's not being a Pollyanna. It could just be positive greetings. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Have a positive interaction so that when your name comes up and they're reviewing it, over time, being positive for the client or pointing positive things out helps. Now, highlighting the benefits a client receives is another way to avoid apathy. Because as you talk about all the great stuff that they get as part of the relationship with you, and as long as those things are relatable, if you simply are saying, well, we have constant backups, we protect your stuff, blah, 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 that's not going to be a benefit because it's tech speak. Where is the idea that, now that we built you this special form that collects information, the mailing list for the newsletter that goes out for the client is growing at 12% every single month. That's a statistic. That's something that they can see. It means something because they're able to communicate more to different people. But when should you let them go in this apathy? The idea that if a client doesn't care about their site, that will lead to you not caring about their site. And that just makes more bad things happen. If a client doesn't care enough to give you the content that you need to do an update, or the images that they said they wanted to be put on the website, but they don't get around to giving it to you, do you think you get around to following up and always be there and saying, hey, you wanted these images. I need those images. Please send them to me. No, you just start to not care. And then they don't care. And it just goes downhill from there to the point where the split is really bad, where both parties start blaming each other. And it all dealt with just pure apathy. Nobody cared. So before that goes down that road, if a client just doesn't care, you really need to consider whether to let them go. This is an interesting one. So the number 6 reason. Now you may be wondering where I got most of these top 10 things. And it actually came from an article in Entrepreneur Magazine where it talked about clients who leave. And so number 6 dealt with personnel. Now, for most freelances and small business web development groups, the personnel changeover may not be that big, but some of you work with 2 or 3 people in your office or with your team. Some of you use virtual assistants. So what I would say is be careful of how many different staff you have interacting with the client. You can prevent that from making sure there are systems in place, ways that a client goes to their portal to submit a ticket, and then a response is handled the exact same way every single time. Because let's say you have a virtual assistant that talks with your client to make sure all the development is done, gets those questions, filters the questions in, and then the next time a client shows up, a different person is helping them. And then the next time a client shows up, a different person is showing up. This is one of those ones where it's going to make the client feel like they're not important. So when you have different personnel who may be dealing with the same client, be very careful of not having too many people interacting at different times with the client. Clients want to have that VIP experience where they feel like they're being taken care of and not just being passed around like a football. But if you do have turnover, you do use a virtual assistant concept. Take the time to introduce the new connection. You are the business owner. You are the CEO of your development house. And so if you know that somebody else is going to be working directly with the client, take the time to say, "Hi, my name is Benjamin. I know we met back when we originally started the contract, when we started the development for your site. It's been great working with you. I just wanted to introduce you to one of our newer employees who is going to be taking the time to focus directly on you." And write that introduction. It may seem like, I don't need to do this. Somebody else is just taking the support ticket. But when you do this and you take the time to introduce a new connection, you're going to give them that VIP experience where it is important that that the client understands, or that they feel like they understand that they're being taken care of. So this is just something to keep in mind, that at that point when a client starts feeling like they're just going to be passed around, because guess what? Clients get invested in relationships with specific personnel type. I'm gonna put a thought into your guys' head. How many of you have ever submitted a support ticket to some different WordPress company, whether they're themes, they do plugins, or something else like that? Or your hosting account, and you have had a really positive experience with a specific client or specific support person, and you've also had a really poor interaction with another support person. How does it feel when that bad person is now going to work on your ticket, or going to help you through with that interaction? No, a lot of times we're already turned off. We already feel like we're not being valued by that company because this person who was not helpful last time is now helping me again. So be very careful of who you let have access and connection with the client, because the client is invested in that relationship. And maybe there's a certain type of person that client works well with, and you don't want to spend your time training either your own employee, your own virtual assistant to take care of your clients in a specific way, or you don't want to take time training your client on how to respond to this new employee, this new virtual assistant. So again, it is much better that if you have a specific person, and maybe that's just you are the one who directly connects with that client. The same thing is true with automating systems. I think it's a great idea that you automate your systems. But what I would warn you on is don't automate systems that are directly connected to communicating with the client. A client knows when they're just getting a form email, because it didn't address what they were saying. Don't automate direct communication and response to a client. That kind of has to do with the whole personnel, because that's going to cause them to leave because they don't feel like they're being taken care of. So the number 7 way clients leave, or reason why, is failure. We've all been there. And yes, we've probably all dropped our ice cream before too. Sometimes you just drop the ball. You flat out screw up. The client many times will take that as an indication to leave, that it's time for them to head out. So what can you do? A lot of times it's simply, you've got to reduce the possibility of that client leaving after you've evaluated whether it's worth it to fight to keep them, by admitting your mistake openly. You work hard to make up for any damage that might result from your failure. But I do want to point this out, that sometimes there's too much water under the bridge. Sometimes the client relationship is so off that you need to let the client go. Because for you to continually grovel before the client, even though it was your fault, is going to do way more damage to your own business, your own future, your own personal well-being. Sometimes we just have to say, that didn't work out, and it was all my fault, but I need to let you go so you can find a client, a developer, a business that can take care of you the way you need to be taken care of. Again, I'm so sorry this ended up this way. I wish you nothing but the best, but I think to move forward, you will be much better off with a different business. Sometimes you just have to just say that it's my fault, but I've got to move on. I know that's hard because it has to admit that we failed. But for your own future, you've got to take that step sometimes. So the number 8 reason why clients leave is neglect. Sometimes the clients feel like you're not paying attention to them. The client begins to feel like they're abandoned. So these are always that we need to be proactive with our clients. We need to be always communicating with them. Regular check-ins. Some clients are going to be fine with weekly check-ins. Some will be fine with monthly check-ins. Some need daily check-ins. I am not always the best at letting people know how I communicate. I am much more of a weekly, kind of as you see what I'm doing with WPStudio, I'm more of a Monday, Friday type of communicator where I will talk about everything that happened on the weekend and what's going to happen this week, and then Friday recapping things and what I'll be working on going forward. So you regularly check in with your clients because you really want to make sure that the client has, that they feel like they are not being just abandoned, let go, ignored. So you got to work hard to stay on the top of their minds. And John, in New Jersey, you're exactly right. Sometimes when you actually admit your mistake, or when you say, sorry, I did not mean to neglect you, or I hope you don't feel abandoned. I've just been working on this project here. I've got things squared away and ready for interaction on this. Sometimes just the apology is what the client is looking for. But I don't want you to go down that stage where you are constantly having to apologize to the client, because there are going to be clients who feel like once they are above you, once they have you, they're going to take advantage of you. That's the client I'm wanting you to learn to get rid of. Because sure, mistakes happen, but don't let that mistake destroy the future of your business or the future of you. So on this one, if you don't have time for a client and the client feels neglected, maybe it is time to let them go. And partly is maybe a client needs daily reassurance. If you do not have that time in your business, maybe at this time, through an exit plan process that we're going to talk about here in just a moment, maybe you find a way to transition them away from your business to something that will fit what they need. And that comes to number 9 reason, the number 9th reason, and that's the needs. Sometimes they just change. Let's say you've had a client for 8 years and all of a sudden they come to you and say, well, we don't need you anymore. Well, why? Because we hired somebody in-house to do what you're doing. We've grown to the point where we need to have it constantly in-house. Well, those are hard things to prepare for. But there's nothing you can do because you're running your business, your clients are running their business, And it's not their responsibility to make sure that you stay in business with them. And this is a hard thing when the clients change. So what could you do? What opportunities are there? One of the ones is always try offering new options for services. Always start to expand your offerings. Maybe it's simply adding into the packages you already have. That also gives you the ability to write news and update your current and past clients about the services that you offer that now you're rolling into the VIP white glove service that you offer, the ability to check on daily stats because maybe you started to feed in Google Analytics into a panel that the client can see. These are all things that you can start offering services that go beyond. Maybe it's you start to productize the idea of a press release, that you go beyond just what a regular press release is. You start talking about, well, with every press release that we write and craft for you, it not only goes to PR agencies, it also includes 5 written social network updates that all draw on different ones. So you write 5 different tweets, you write 5 different Facebook updates, maybe 3 different Instagram things, 2 different things that go on LinkedIn, and you give them this promotional package but it's something else. It's not just your original offering of developing their site and maintaining their site. If you're constantly offering things, that you're improving the offerings, it's one thing that keeps encouraging the client to stick with you because you are growing along with them. So those are just a few of the things that you can prevent when the client's needs changes, but we also have to realize you can't change your client's needs. So you may just have to let them go. There are going to be clients that outgrow you, outgrow your needs. I mean, I look at it like this. Maybe 20 years ago, there was a burger place here in the Washington, D.C. area that only had about 3 or 4 shops. It was Five Guys Burgers. And they had just a local web agency, and you actually could see it at the bottom of the Five Guys website. And all of a sudden, they franchised this thing, went big. Five Guys, I think there's now 250 stores around the United States, and they way outgrew this little mom and pop web development house. It's one of those ones where it's going to happen that you may have a client who needs way more service capabilities than you could offer. And Paul, yes, you are absolutely right that if you do improve things that you offer, it's probably helpful that you have ways of notifying people that, hey, we've got this great new service that we are offering. This also is why you should look at tiered ongoing packages. So that if a client is on there, if you start off with let's say a 2-tier or 3-tier based on how often they pay, what things are included, you can always add another tier 4 years from now. You could add features in one tier, not the other tier, trying to get some groups to upgrade. There's the idea that if you are improving, the clients feel that you are growing. So the 10th reason clients leave is competition. You are not the only person in your town, in your state, in your street probably, who's the only supplier in town, who's the only one who can do web development. Be aware of what's around you. And I would even say have some responses ready when a client asks the question, well, I just saw this Wix commercial, or I just saw Squarespace. That looks awesome. Can I do that? Have a response rather than just you could, but it stinks. The client is going to be like, that's not helpful at all. So you could come out with, yes, many people do find that they like designing it themselves. But you are left up to your own devices to do the design. There's not someone there who's going to be able to fix images for you, manage things, be able to contact and do custom work on this. There's nobody who's going to be able to do integrations with your mailing list without too much help. So you actually can talk about some of the benefits that you do bring to the table. And that's where I would do is talk about what you bring to the table, your benefits, not so much in comparison to the service that they may say, oh, this is so much cheaper. At the end of the day, if they're so caught on cost, there's nothing you can do, because that leads back to the other one where they no longer see your value. So just because a price is lower doesn't mean the value is better or the value is lower, or, price and value are not direct lines that always go in the same direction and are always, going back and forth. Most clients want the best value for the best price. So you learn how to balance that, how to communicate that to the client, that you bring value. And that value outweighs the price. But at the same time, identify your weaknesses. Know how you stack up. Here's a quick thing to think about. What's your turnaround time if a client needs a simple edit? Because if the client says, oh, I want a quick little, can you add a little thing at the top because we're having a sale. Well, if they were on Squarespace or Wix, that they could probably do that pretty quick. What's your turnaround time? Do the clients understand that it's going to take 24 hours to do something? Or maybe less, or depends on the type of contract you have with the client. So with this, like all the others, do you already have an exit plan? If you can't match the value or provide better value, maybe it's time to let the client go. Notice how I didn't say price. If you can't match the price, maybe it's time to let them go. Match the value. Start talking to clients about value, not price. The one thing I've always seen that clients get, it's almost like the light bulb goes on. Do you want to own your content, or do you want some other marketing agency to own it or control it? In the past, whenever I've said that, that was the end. That was it. End of the story. They didn't go anywhere else because they did not want some other company that is actually a marketing company, a promotional company, somebody whose sole existence is to promote things on the internet. They didn't want them to, quote, have control. They wanted control. So, I told you I had a little something special in this. How many of you have an exit plan for your clients? Or when the client says, I'm out of here, you just say, sayonara. I don't like you either. And you go unfriend them on Facebook. Okay. I want to encourage people to consider implementing an exit plan. Doesn't mean the client, the now ex-client, will do any of these, but it will make you more professional. The idea, do you have an exit feedback survey? I know we hate hearing surveys or reading responses from people who are already either angry at us or don't see our value or don't care about us. But I would encourage you to have an exit feedback survey, and maybe it's just an email that you say, hey, thank you for the time. I've enjoyed working on your projects. You don't have to say I've enjoyed you as a client. You could say I've enjoyed the development growth project of building your site. For most of us, we may enjoy that aspect of the development. So have a survey, and if you could, let us know your feelings. And they could be some fairly generic things, but a client who's on their way out might actually have an idea that you hadn't thought would have been an issue. And maybe it was the client that will then admit, I feel like you didn't care about me. I never heard from you for 5 weeks. And at that point, you're like, oh, man, maybe that one was on me. Now, these other 5 things that they're complaining about they're in la la land about. But you can take that away and say, you know what, I'm going to work on over the next quarter, the next 6 months, I'm going to work on improving that communication because I don't want to lose other clients. Do you have potential recommendations you keep on file? Do you know other developers? They could be friends, they could be competitors. You know, if a client says, you know, we've outgrown, we need somebody who can do a lot more. This is a great way not to burn a bridge by saying, you know what, I know 2 or 3 agencies that they work with, you know, Subway, they work with some larger companies, they may be right up your alley. And so go ahead and I'm just going to pass on their contact information and we're good to go. You know, this type of potential recommendation is great to find at a WordCamp. Because you may find some people who are specializing in smaller type of clients. You maybe find people that specialize in larger style clients. Get their contact. If for nothing else, then you have potential recommendations. Because simply recommending somebody and say, I've attended a class by them, or I've listened to a lecture by them, and they seem to be right up your alley for the type of marketing that you want to do with your website. You can check them out here. Now, the client may just ignore you, but you've softened the blow of an angry exit because you're still trying to help them. But if you have those beforehand, maybe you've got 2 or 3 that you would consider above you, 2 or 3 that you might consider below you, 2 or 3 that are just in your area that you know about. It's an easy way to pass something on. Do you have a smooth tech transition concept? And yes, this might be what T was saying. It's a zip file. If you've been working with the client for a while, you may control their domains. You may control their hosting. You may have their backups. What happens when they leave? Maybe you simply put up a website that says, here are your information. Please download it as soon as possible. And let me know once you've downloaded it so I can remove this from the internet. If you do not respond by, August 31st, this will automatically be taken down. Yeah, here's all your passwords in plain text on the whatever. No, don't do that. But think through that. Because what if the client leaves? Do you already know everything you need from the client in order to transfer your domain name? Do you know that if you are on a GoDaddy account, or if their domain is on a GoDaddy account, you need their GoDaddy email, or that you need their GoDaddy ID number in order to do you know what it takes to transfer a domain name? Have you transferred domain names before? Do you know what it's going to take to close out the hosting account, save the backup, deliver it? Where's the domain? All these type of things are things that you should have thought through before you have somebody go and leave you. And I know you may not like this last one. Thank them for being a part of the business relationship. Send them a thank you note. You wish them well. You hope that they find what they're looking for. You wish them all the great success with their business. The reason why all these things It's all about relationship. That's the final thought. The reason why a client will leave is because there's something wrong with the business relationship. And I know I've said this before, but a happy client, you might be lucky if they tell 2 people out of 10. But an angry, upset client who just doesn't like you anymore is going to tell 7 out of 10 people how horrible you are. So if relationships is the final thought, when clients leave, you need to evaluate what is worth it to chase after them, adjust pricing, put them into a different bracket, fix issues that need to be fixed, deal with the relationship. But at the end of the day, if it's not worth it for you or your business, guess what? It's not worth it for them. Let them go. If your clients are causing you frustration, anger, hatred of having to just, oh man, Thursday's the day I have to talk to this person. Why? I understand that we all experience those times where we just have to put food on the table. We got to pay the bills. I understand that. But if that's where you are with some of your clients, I want you to change your mentality just slightly. That you can tell yourself, I'm not going to have this client forever. Maybe you need them for the next 3 months just to pay the bills. Great. But don't let that ruin every single day when you have to interact with them. Go into that conversation, go into writing that email, go into answering the phone call, understanding I am not going to let them stay in my life for any longer than I have to. Which means now you are in control. Even if they have to stick around for a little bit. But if a client wants to leave and it's not worth it for you, let them leave. Because if a client wants to leave and you're doing everything to go out of your way to keep them, the clients aren't happy anyway. You're not going to be happy, and it's just not going to be a good business relationship. Because that's what it is. Clients and small businesses is a relationship. So I hope this has been helpful as we look through why clients leave, the 10 things, what you could do to fix things, what you could do to keep them, and then when you want to let them go. If you appreciate these type of business development training events, definitely check us out at WPStudio.com. We also do lots more in terms of technical training, getting into the code, how to build the websites, and a lot more. I want to thank everybody for joining me in the chat room there at WPStudio.com/chat. The slides will be available in the replay, both on the YouTube channel and in the training library at WP Studio. Take care, everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of a Thursday.